everyone. Welcome to Straight Talk, the power of effective communication. Because this one is focusing on leading self through connecting and communicating with other people. So a little bit different shift in terms of just increasing influence and how we do that. That's the essence of self-leadership. But this book specifically talks on communication and connection. What I wanted to do with this book and now this video course is focus on the principles of connection and influence that underlie and support those communication principles, right? The communication principles themselves aren't as effective if we aren't first having the time and the ability and the skills to connect with that person. So
communication is about information, transferring information. But when we start talking about connection, we're talking about motivation, inspiration, and transformation. So, and we're not talking about leadership in the sense of leading other people,
right?
But we're going to talk about how to communicate in a way that allows you to influence other people. Make your life better.
It absolutely will.
At home and at work.
And here's just an example page of what that participant's workbook might look like. You can see that there are blanks in your participant's workbook. And as we go through the course, each chapter, the answers to those blanks are going to appear on the screen so you can fill in those blanks. This really helps with your absorption and learning and retention of the material.
Absolutely, Rhea. And in the age of AI, we're not using AI.
No.
We just going to be talking to folks, right?
Yep.
Telling them what we know and what we've learned.
Yep.
Yeah, and John Maxwell says it best. Everyone communicates, few connect.
Yeah, very well said.
And that's what we're going to talk about, connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, I remember in all my 20 years when I was in the corporate world, Rhea, all of us, everybody in the offices, in the workforce, everybody wanted to. We always said we need more communication. We need communication training. We always felt like
we hear that a lot.
We were not being communicated to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's usually what it is that we feel like other people should do more communication, right? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's what we always thought.
You know, just because of my personal story and growing up very isolated and, you know, not getting out in the world, not going to school or anything like that, like my communication skills were really just pretty basic. And it wasn't that I didn't want to communicate or connect with people early on. I just didn't know how, because I've never really developed that skill. Yeah. And now I talk to people for a living. We both do.
So you can learn this stuff.
You can learn. Anyone can learn to be more effective as a communicator and better as a connector. And so we are really going to dive deep into the skills that you and I have learned throughout our journey, and just sharing those principles and some practices too to help people be more effective.
Yep. And part of my story was when I was younger, I'd communicate, but I wasn't looking to connect with very many people. So I was not a good communicator because I wasn't connecting. And so I learned to do it as well. It took me a long time, and I'm still working on it.
We all are.
One of those things you got to connect with people. You got to improve your character.
Sure.
To connect better with people, and that's what I had to work on the most. But we're going to talk about those character traits and principles of influence, but it's all going to be wrapped around and relative to communicating better and connecting with people as we go through this series here. I'm excited about it, Rhea.
Yeah.
You got some good stuff in this book.
But it's how we say what we say so much of the time that we're either building a bridge and increasing communication, connection, and influence, or we're building up a barrier and creating a wall. And most of the time, when we're trying to be effective, we have to work with other people, right? When we want to accomplish something, communication is so critically important. And again, this doesn't just apply at work. Absolutely, we have to communicate and connect at work. But how much more impactful and important is it for us to learn to communicate and connect in our personal relationships at home? And so when we think about that, our ability to effectively influence people really comes down to how do we connect? How do we try to communicate, and who are we as a person? Because that, like you said, is going to determine our ability or even desire to connect with other people.
Most people who talk about communication in the workplace, they'd never say they need more connection with each other or with leaders. They're missing the whole point. That's why you wrote this book.
Yep.
It's also why the title of the book, Straight Talk, The Power of Effective Communication. Because communication is a word that everybody knows. If you would have said the power of effective connection, people wouldn't understand it was a book about communication.
No.
Because they'd have missed it. So we're trying to take that word that should be used and make it more mainstream and within your organization, hopefully people start using it. But the number one thing you got to do is make sure that you understand, and you will after you go through this course, why you need to connect and how you need to connect and what you got to do to connect. Chapter 7 is titled "Winning the Name Game."
Yes.
This chapter right here in the book and this video right here, to me, it ought to be worth the whole price of admission. Because it's such a huge impact of connecting with people.
It is
remembering their names.
Mm. And it's, I hear all the time people say, oh, I'm no good at remembering people's names. Well, you won't be very good at it until you work at it. But notice, you don't have any problem remembering people's names. You remember your boss's name, your spouse's name, your kid's name. You can remember names. Like, you don't have any problem remembering those.
You met somebody.
So what's interesting is that we do remember names of the people who are important to us. And so
easily.
We do. And so, when people say, well, I'm just not good at remembering names, I know that you can get better at remembering names. It's a challenge for all of us to remember people's names if we meet a lot of people, right? But we can all get better. And so I wanted to share my tips on remembering names because you and I meet a lot of people and we do work at remembering people's names. If you're listening with the intent to use their name right away, your brain flags that as important information because you're already prepping it. Hey, I need to remember that name. I need to notice that name because I'm going to use that name. Here in a second. I want to be confident. There's nothing wrong with being confident. But when you cross that line into arrogance, that's going to shut down your connection with people and your influence.
And that's what you got to remember. We're framing it relative to connection.
Sure.
And you can answer this right now just by thinking about it yourself. You're going to be more likely to connect with and trust and value and like somebody who's arrogant or someone who's confident.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with confidence. We want to be around confident people. We don't want to be around arrogant people.
Attitude is so important in general. But when you are trying to communicate and connect with someone, attitude is literally everything because people can feel your attitude towards them.
Sometimes they can see it from a distance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you definitely can feel it when you get up close.
You definitely can feel it. And, it's one of those things that we know, but we don't always stop to think about it. But we subconsciously assess somebody's attitude and energy level as soon as they walk into the room, right? And that's, again, that's happening usually unconsciously or subconsciously right there because questions are one of the most powerful tools that we have in order to connect with people, in order to build influence and strengthen the relationship with people. Questions are a powerful, powerful tool. And so get really good at asking the right questions at the right time in the right place. And it can just be an incredible tool to leverage your ability to connect.
Talk about that a little bit before we dive into it, about how you use questions to begin to connect with people.
Well, questions are, again, if you are a very talkative person, your most difficult thing is asking a question and listening to the answer.
And stop talking.
Stop talking. If you are not naturally a talkative person, then questions are great because you can ask a great question and the other person's going to do all the talking.
You get to hang out.
This is great.
Oh, you talk about this for introverts too.
Uh-huh.
A good way that introverts can
yeah, absolutely.
Can connect like crazy.
If you have a very strong skill as a listener, questions allow you to leverage that skill and do more listening. So, I just love that. When you think about it, questions allow you to learn. They allow you to learn more about the other person, the situation. I mean, you'll learn all kind of stuff when you just ask the right question and listen to the answer. It's incredible. A lot of times if we are not confident or we're not confident in ourselves or what we're saying, that's going to come across in how we are communicating. And that's going to lose a lot of our connection ability. If we're not confident in our message, the other person's sure not going to have confidence in our message. And so we really want to make sure that we are intentional with our speed and our tone and how we're saying what we're saying to make sure that that confidence is coming through in a way that increases connection.
It sounds so simple. But last time we talked about difficult dialogue. This time we're talking about resolving conflict is the title of this chapter.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some things you actually can do during difficult dialogue, right? What do you actually do?
What do you actually do? So to me, this is a little bit more of the how-to, right? We talked in the last chapter about why it's important, why it's challenging. Now we're going to actually give you kind of the structure of how to resolve that conflict. If you're not in a place emotionally where you are receptive to listening and understanding the other person's perspective, you're not prepared to have that conversation, right? Because if you're not ready to listen and understand, then you're going to go into that situation only trying to share your viewpoint. And if they're doing the same thing, all the two of you are going to do is just hit head on and try to bust through the wall of the other person, right? So you have to be in a place emotionally, and if that means you can't have the conversation until the next day, the next week,
You might hit that pause button and wait a while.
you might. But if you're not ready to listen, you're not ready to have the conversation.
Like
Learning to share your story, first of all, not everybody wants to share their story or needs to share their story on a stage like Mac and I do. And that's perfectly okay. But a lot of times when we are comfortable sharing our story, A, we can help somebody else, but B, it can go a long way in increasing that connection with somebody else because we're willing to be vulnerable in sharing that story. And I always say, until we own our story, it's going to own us. Right?